A couple decades ago, a trend started in D&D. So this is starting with 4th edition. And it is that alignment has been reduced and diminished and even deconstructed. So it began with 4E. 5th edition has continued that same trend. Now that's an unfortunate thing. It's really not a good thing because alignment is one element that is woven into D&D. And if it is removed, then the fabric of the game, the fabric of the experience becomes thinner. So the different alignments that are in D&D, and the good, evil, law, and chaos, those are very important. They might be more important than a lot of people realize, and I'm going to talk about that here. Now, D&D, or the authors of D&D, didn't create these concepts. These are things that really are pretty universal. And the creators of D&D took a lot of inspiration from literature, from authors like Michael Moorcock and J.R.R. Tolkien. Moorcock in his Elric series had these forces of law and chaos, these cosmic forces that were constantly at battle with each other, this constant conflict. Now, Tolkien, with Lord of the Rings and really just his whole mythos regarding Middle-earth, had a different approach to good versus evil than Moorcock had to his approach with law versus chaos. And really, D&D does things more in the Moorcock style, where these are their own forces, right? These alignments are their own independent cosmic forces at battle with each other. Tolkien, on the other hand, drew a lot more inspiration from a Christian perspective in which good is the essential, right? Good flows from an ultimate divine source, and evil is a corruption of that good. Evil is not really its own fully independent power. It's more parasitic, and it twists and perverts and corrupts what otherwise would be good, really what would be healthy or what would support life abundant. So original D&D, back when the game first came out in 74, had 3 alignments. They were lawful, neutral, and chaotic. So lawful was more associated with what was good, and chaotic was more associated with what was bad. Then came AD&D, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, in 77, and that gave us the 2 axes of alignment that we now know today. So the lawful and chaotic axis with neutral in the middle, and good and evil axis, again with neutral in the middle. So we have these 9 expressions of that, with lawful good, chaotic good, lawful neutral, neutral neutral or true neutral, chaotic neutral, and lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. So the designers of D&D, of course, did not create these concepts in and of themselves. They're universal concepts, but they did codify them into an alignment system. They codified the alignments and they popularized them. Now, the alignment system is not perfect. There are some ways in which it's tricky to implement it. Sometimes people have difficulty making an accurate judgment call on what a character's alignment is. We see this especially with characters that are more nuanced or complex or gray. It can be tricky. I also wrestled with this when I made videos giving alignments to the characters in Game of Thrones. Some characters are just particularly difficult to figure out what their alignment is. Some characters' alignments change, they shift through certain transformative moments or certain decisions that they make that set them on a new path. Or some people just aren't particularly skilled at assessing or discerning what a character's alignment is. There's also the question of how much impact should alignment have on the game? Should there be a bunch of mechanics that are affected by alignment? Should GMs and players have to think about it a lot? They've already got a lot of other things to think about. Is that going to get in the way of the organic, natural flow of play? Another issue is how philosophical do you want your game to be? If it becomes very philosophical and very intellectual, it's going to appeal to a narrower range of people. And then, generally speaking, the less philosophical it is, the wider or broader the appeal is going to be to a potential audience. Personally, I do like alignment playing a role in the game. I don't think it needs to be just always present, always on everyone's minds, and like this kind of straitjacket thing, but I do think it needs to have its proper place in the game, right? It's one of the elements in there along with many other important elements. So I'll give you some examples of what I mean. These come from D&D books that I published, Esper's Emporium of Esoterica and Monstrous Heroes. There's a cycle of 4 alignment-themed spells, so 1 for each of the core alignments. There's Chaos Rift, which unleashes a vortex of hissing, writhing energies, and you roll a die to see what the randomized effect is. Deific Visage is the good-themed one, which invokes the image of a radiant god. It does radiant damage and can blind the targets. Edict of Law is this great magical decree filled with the essence of order, and it can deal psychic damage as well as limit the targets to making only 1 attack per turn and not being able to cast any spells other than cantrips. And Tendrils of Corruption is the evil-themed spell which calls up these writhing tendrils of putrescence. It deals necrotic damage, and the target takes ongoing necrotic, and each time they fail their ongoing save, the ongoing damage increases. A cool thing about these spells is that a creature of the opposite alignment has disadvantage on its saving throw against it. So with the evil spell, a good aligned creature would have disadvantage on the save, or on the chaotic spell, a lawful aligned creature would have disadvantage on its save against it. And then the converse is true. So if you are chaotic, you have advantage on your save against the chaos-infused spell. Furthermore, if the caster has an opposed alignment to the spell, the caster himself also gets subjected to the spell. So if you're good aligned and you cast the evil spell, you too get subjected to the effects of the Tendrils of Corruption. The Paragon class that's in here has this wonder called Philosopher's Salvo. So this is an option that you could choose. And as an action, you issue profound philosophical or religious declarations. You choose target creatures, and the creatures have to make wisdom saving throws. And on a failure, a creature cannot take actions on its next turn. If a target is significantly weaker than you, like its challenge rating is 1/3 your Paragon level or lower, it also loses the will to fight for 24 hours. And if the target has an alignment that is opposed to yours, so like if you're lawful and the target is chaotic, if it fails to save, it also takes 1d8 psychic damage per 2 Paragon levels that you have. There is a 9th level cleric conjuration spell called Heavenly Host, which is this mighty prayer that calls upon a company of angels. It actually summons a creature that is in the book called Host of Angels. However, you're not able to summon these angels. The spell doesn't work if you have an evil alignment. And if you willingly commit an act of evil, the angels depart. There is a monk subclass called Way of the Blessed Lotus, which follows ideals of grace and piety and wisdom. And while it doesn't strictly say that there are alignment restrictions to it, reading it, you get the sense that this is very good aligned focus. This would probably be for a lawful good monk. I could maybe see a lawful neutral or a neutral good following this path as well. And the capstone feature called Blessed Soul very much deals with your character having freedom from greed and owning this bare minimum amount of possessions and basically donating wealth and treasure you find to good aligned temples or other good aligned institutions that help those who are in need. There is a cursed magic item called the Abyssal Amulet, and the more that it corrupts you, the more you fail your saves, the more you become like a demon, and your alignment eventually shifts to chaotic evil, and you even physically take on demonic traits. One of the monsters in here, called the Headless Mule, is basically a woman who has been cursed due to her grievous sins against a temple, and the way to remove the curse is for someone to somehow ride the mule, which is a dangerous task in and of itself, and fasten the holy symbol of a good aligned god about the stump of its neck. Another monster in here is the Muatrep, a huge mythic bird with 4 giant heron heads. It's the child of a river god, and each of the 4 heads has a different alignment, and it has riddles. It's sort of a sphinx-like experience encountering this thing. And once per day, each of its heads can cast the associated alignment-themed spell, the ones that I referenced earlier. In Monstrous Heroes, each of the monster race/classes has a section at the beginning that talks about their alignments and gives you a good idea of what alignments that type of creature might be, or in some cases that they always are, such as the Yadira, the Celestial, is pretty much always good aligned, though sometimes neutral, but like neutral associated with good. Or vampires are pretty much always evil, though in some cases they find a way to become neutral only through this like cold reasoning and philosophical conviction. The dragon class has some alignment-themed draconic talents. Gleaming Grace for a dragon of any good alignment, Roiling Assault for a dragon of a chaotic alignment, Thundering Edict for a lawful dragon, and Wave of Corruption for an evil dragon. There is an 8th level spell for clerics and hags called Damnation, in which you attempt to banish a creature to a dismal corner of hell. And the spell stipulates some alignment-based things here. If the target of Damnation has a good alignment, it gains advantage on its saving throw. If the target of Damnation is a fiend, it suffers disadvantage on the save. Casting Damnation on a creature other than a fiend is a gravely and intrinsically evil act. If you do so, your alignment shifts one step closer to evil. And in the section all about settings and campaign plots, many of the locations have an alignment, or really they'll have 2 alignments, like the 2 most typical alignments of the people, of the culture, of the laws, just what it is like being in that specific district or that specific city in the world. And if you're interested to check out either of these books, there is a link down in the video description to my online shop. You can get them in hardcover or PDF. So those are the sorts of things I like. It's not always there, it's not overbearing, but it's certainly one of the elements in the game. It adds another dimension to things. It adds more depth. There's more flavor. When that's missing, it's like the game is missing one of its support columns and things get a little more shallow. There's something deep about alignments, even though it is an imperfect system and we imperfect humans, have flawed ways of expressing it. There's something very, very meaningful about them. It's been my observation that if you remove alignment from the game is worse off for it. Now, again, I know there are some criticisms of the alignment system, and it does have some imperfections, but the parts that do function are so good, and they add so much to the game. They're so rich. So why is that? Well, it's because an RPG, at its core, is a mythic experience, and the alignments relate to mythic archetypes. Chaos is the trickster, the rebel, the madman, the wild child. Law is the judge, the architect, the monk, the sentinel, the soldier. Evil is the tyrant, like the evil king or the evil queen. It's the evil father and the evil mother, the witch, the demon, the vampire, the lich. Good is the good king or the good queen, the good father, the good mother, the hero, the saint, the savior, the healer, the angel. One of the big reasons why the symbol of the dragon is so powerful is because it's an embodiment of the archetypes of both chaos and evil. It's chaos because it's a serpent-like thing. You don't know which way it's going to move. It can kind of go in any way. It's down in this dark underground layer where you can't see things, and it's dangerous and unknown. And it's evil because it's a terrible thing that wants to kill you and devour you, and it's a scourge of the countryside, and it's stolen the ancestral treasure that it's hoarding, or it's abducted the maiden princess. Dragon is this powerful icon that represents all the threats and dangers and problems that can pop up as soon as you go outside of your protected safe zone, as soon as you venture out of the known world. Archetypes are incredibly powerful. They're also very distilled. They're kind of like monolithic things. They're not really nuanced or very complex. They are these powerful, pure essences of certain forces or certain patterns. An archetype has very specific traits and it focuses intensely on its essence. Archetypes are at the very foundation of mythic stories, so therefore RPGs rely upon that. There are layers of depth and they all depend on what's beneath them. So we have this foundation of mythic archetypes, and then resting on top of that, or depending on that, is the hero's journey, right? The timeless, universal story of venturing out of the known world into the unknown, where you're going to encounter all kinds of trials and then hopefully recover some treasure or some valuable resource or wisdom or life-bearing maiden, and then bring that precious resource back to the known world for the embetterment of the community. Okay, so we have mythic archetypes. Hero's journey goes on top of that. Then we have fantastical stories on top of hero's journey. So all of the like adventure stories, mythology, legends and folk tales and fairy tales. Then resting upon fantastic stories, we have the fantasy genre. We could probably put sci-fi in here as well. Then within fantasy genre, we have role-playing games. Alignment and the associated archetypes are so deep because so many other things depend upon them. There are the many layers, many structures need those things to exist first. So there is the root of the problem. That's why things get overall worse when alignment is diminished or removed from the RPG. If you damage the foundation, the structures that rely on it are also going to be damaged. If you weaken the foundation, the whole building, the whole house is going to get weakened. If you remove the foundation, all the levels of the structure are doomed to collapse. You can also tell that alignments are so powerful by the fact that they convey so much information in just a couple short words. You can say lawful good, or chaotic evil, or neutral, and so much is expressed right there in that very elegant, small formula. Now, I do think the various criticisms about the alignment system or the best way to implement it are conversations worth having. I think that dialogue should exist. Those ideas should keep getting developed. One key point that I try to express to people is to remember that alignments should not be these complete cages, these total straitjackets. Now, there are certain creatures and characters that are at the extreme ends of an alignment spectrum, right? You do want the absolutely fully corrupt demon, and you do want the absolutely good, pure, righteous angel. But there's a lot of area in between. There's a lot of gray area or just a middle portion of the spectrums. You know, when does good become neutral and when does neutral become evil? But that's not really a problem specific to alignment. That's just reality. When does green become blue? When does here become there? Just because there are blurry lines in these border areas, that doesn't mean that there's a problem with alignment, right? That's just how life is. So I encourage everybody to approach the topic of alignment with some reverence, with a bit of due respect, because any story, right? Any story where there's characters and there's conflict, it's going to ultimately rely upon alignment. It's going to ultimately rely upon mythic archetypes. That's why there are alignment chart memes for like every movie, every book, every game, etc. There's my word of caution. We rip out alignment at our peril. Thank you everyone for watching. I especially want to give a big thank you to all my supporters over on Patreon. In particular, Modern Patron, Andrew Branch, Adam Wood, Nick Thy Pirate King, Jared Primont, Locke, Nicholas A., Technicolor Shale, Robert Brashini, Ben R., Tornado, Agile Monk, James from KC, and Jorm Rising. You guys make such a difference. And if you, watching, also want to show some support to the channel, check out my online shop, link down below. You can find the books that I mentioned earlier, as well as some other books and modules, or head on over to my Patreon page, where there's a bunch of cool rewards and stuff going on there. Until next time, everybody, may your adventures be many.